My today's guest is Samir. He is an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad and IIT Kanpur. He has worked with large corporates such as Genpact, TCS, etc., where he has been a part of transitioning pre-sales and sales. He has worked in USA, UK, and Europe with customers from a wide range of industry. So, welcome, Samir.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentations, please type them in the question box in your Zoom account control panel. I will try to bring them up at the end of the session. During the session, I am keeping everyone in mute for the entire session. You can raise the questions through the control panel. Wish you a very happy learning.
Thank you.
So, welcome. Samir, before we begin, let me ask you if you have condensed a lot of advice, if you have just in a one thing, what that would be.
So, in context of today's, call that we're going to have and the webinar topic as well, I think my advice would be to sell value and not the price. Let me explain it a little bit. It's about creating such a value on each call that the customer should be willing to write you a check just for your advice. Now, when I speak to audience of sales professionals, like, there would be some here right now. And if I ask you guys, okay, how many of you sell value versus price? I think everybody will raise their hands. And I have done that with a lot of audience, Deepa. But my next question to them is normally that, how do you do that? And that is frequently followed by some uncomfortable silence. So many consider themselves to be value sellers, but few are able to articulate what that really means and how they can do that, Deepa.
Okay. So what exactly value selling, can you define it in a simple terms for us? I mean, a lot of audience would like to know that as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, really. I mean, in simple economic definition, let's say economic 101, value equals benefits minus costs. So if you follow the logic of that equation, then selling value means creating some benefit through the sales process itself. Now, we're talking about sales process creating value. Beyond that is provided by the product or service itself. So, if you have a sales team, you may ask yourself, did your salesperson do something on the call valuable enough for your customers to pay you just for the call? Now, that doesn't happen often, does it? If they didn't, then the only way you can profit from sales operation is by reducing costs. And that we do a lot of times. Now, that's why all my effort to make sales team effective has been focused on increasing not just the value of the offering. Well, that's important too. The value of offering is very important, but also the value of the sales call itself. So Deepa, that is how I would define the value for you.
Okay, that's a wonderful insight. So what may inhibit the value selling?
Now, really, I will have to take you through to a little bit of psychology, or psychological perspective, really. I will take help from Sachin to show you something on the screen, really. And if you can see this chart, Deepa, if you see that, does it say to you the name of the person who created that chart? That's called Yerkes-Dodson law. Now, it's very important and it's really used a lot. And you know what, all of us can really relate to it also quite well. So when you see performance, that's on the y-axis. You've got weak performance to a strong performance. And what you have on the right-hand side is how you are creating arousal by, creating more anxiety. Now you see that curve is really rising. So it's a good thing. Stress is not always bad, really. But you see, when you're increasing it, the attention is increasing and the interest is increasing, and then there is a optimal arousal and optimal performance. You can see that. That's the top part here. Now you want to stay there. but you don't want to push your people beyond that, would you? But you see, what do you do in sales really? You set targets, and that's a good thing to do, and you pressure on numbers, and so that you can crank up the stress and people move in the direction where they're sort of at a healthy level of stress. But how do you figure out if you're pushing your person downhill the curve of low performance also? Because, after that, it starts becoming downhill. And I really want you to note this part quite well, that when your sales team or the sellers are under inordinate high pressure to close deals, they may also become more aggressive and damage the promising sales cycle itself. So don't you feel that, as a sales experience, that pushiness and other desperate behavior would end up reducing sales effectiveness and causing margins to shrink? So if your team is selling any kind of complex solution, Deepa, most customers will become non-responsive and pressured. I mean, that's a very common thing. And when I talk to large companies like Boeing, and I talk to small organizations, maybe about 500 people organizations also, it's just the same. It really depends on that. So, I would like to picture this. Hopefully, you can gauge what is the right amount of stress level for each person. But maybe you can do it for one person. But as the teams become larger, you may start throwing a lot of people off the curve and making them inefficient from psychological perspective. If I put it right here. So if your numbers don't pick, what should you do? Should you put more pressure or relax the pressure and start coaching? Now, I think you would say that saying for me, that was easy, really. I mean, all of us understand that, but how do you do it? It is a paradigm shift, Deepa, which is needed in today's online world. So we are living in that connected world. The good news is that there are technologies and processes which are available to allow attention to one person at a time and hold her so that you can keep them in the healthy stress area all the time. So I'll summarize it by saying that right kind of process and technologies have made many large sales teams super effective. And I've seen it happen in last couple of years more often. And yes, it has made them more humane too, Deepa. So I'll say that to you really.
So Sameer, here when you have talked about consultative, paradigm shift. So are you hinting towards consultative selling paradigm?
Yeah, in a way, yes. I mean, I should say definitely yes. So, what you're doing really is, let's have a look at your question here. So is it consultative selling paradigm? So you can encourage the team to move down the continuum from the transactional behavior on one hand to the other side of the continuum, which is the consultative and relationship building. So in that sense, yes. So in consultative selling, what you end up doing is you end up giving a great experience, or what is a sales experience. So, when you're working with customers, your customers are working with you as well. And if you're a senior manager in your organization, I hope a lot of people in today's call would be senior function heads in the sales organizations. You need to spend more time creatively with the teams, and you've got a large team, so that's a problem. But you should be spending more time defining what are the rubrics of the sales experience. Now, I don't know whether you get time to really look at that aspect also, which is sales experience. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing that you end up doing, Deepa.
Can you, Sameer, can you explain why do we emphasize on sales experience that much?
Okay, I'll tell you. These are hard times. And the question is, why do I emphasize on sales experience? These are hard times for all the corporates. Because there is a lot of competition, and there are the same technologies available to everyone. So I get asked by these corporates whom I consult with that how can you break it down into the differentiators that we can create for our products vis-a-vis our competition. So what I have realized, and there's a lot of the research, beg your partner, which indicates that the sales experience influences approximately 23 to 27% of decision criteria, especially in a B2B selling. So 25%, that's huge. You see that? You must try to grab it. So it's a no-brainer for me because, to do the sales experience improvement, you really don't have to improve your product. You're not adding more features really, are you? You're just increasing the sales experience. You may ask me how to do that. That's a different thing. But yeah, 25% of the experience decision making is driven by just sales experience. You better start doing it, Deepa. Really, that's what I will say to you.
Oh, okay. So, can you also share with us, how to deliver that sales experience? I mean, of course, many people are here in sales and would like to know this part.
I think I was sort of thinking that you will ask this because you see, saying that is easy for a lot of consultants and large consulting organizations, but how to put it in practice, devil is in the detail. And I would love to share some insight here. Let me start simplifying it a bit, and we can take some experience of the audience also. So don't you think that the sales experience includes creating value for customers by helping them see issues or problems they hadn't considered yet? So you're like a wizard to them, the customers. When you meet them on an equal plane. You are seeing the issues just the same way. And your task as salesperson is to work on problems that the customers face. You really need to know what those problems are. And you have to let them, now this part is interesting. You need to see them opportunities that your customers were not even aware of. Now, how do you do that? And of course, you need to create a solution that they did not anticipate. You know what? Value addition is only when you gave them something extra, isn't it? I mean, if you just gave them the product, that's not enough. So you really do these things. You uncover the problem, you create those opportunities, you tell them about those opportunities that they were not even aware of. And you sort of create a solution out of that. Now, you will, if you have to really implement it, and we're sort of getting into that implementation zone now, Deepa. So let me pull up my socks and start telling you the rubrics. And therefore, I'll say you will require your sales professionals to do a couple of things. These are hard things. You will ask them to do strategic thinking, and they need to know customer circumstances. And this they will need to do by mastering customer scenarios. So do your salespeople really know the customer scenarios beyond the product or service they are selling? Now that's a little more deeper. It's not about training them on scenarios really. You start throwing cases at them is not going to be enough. These are nuanced elements of the sales cycle. They suffer when the focus is on closing deal, in a specified time, like a month or a quarter or an end. Those things are important. But do you really understand the customer scenario really, Deepa? That is where you start as such. And then there are ways to tackle it, Deepa.
I completely agree with you here, Samir. But if you can, share a few takeaways so that audience can start implementing the sales experience, then that will be, really helpful for all people here.
I think from today's webinar, I would love to ask people to take just 3 takeaways on process side. Now, if you're doing process, then these are the 3 takeaways, and I'll request Sachin to start projecting the first one for you. And this one is a simple one. I mean, the way it looks, it's a simple one. So the first key takeaway is for you to focus on sales process, not the outcome. Now what you really mean to say here is that the sales process is actually a roadmap to creating the kind of sales experience that the customer value and that differentiates you from your competition. So you want to really focus on the sales process. So if you want to create a process that will help your sellers sell, then you have to match it by how the buyers buy. So what you're doing is you sell it the way you match it to how the buyers buy. So that's what the first takeaway is. And in each phase of the sales process, there are few key actions that influence whether or not an opportunity will progress to the next stage. So that's the first, takeaway. And that will be baked in. But here is the second one for you. And if you look at the second one, now this is going to be more difficult. This one is about work with the sales team to understand where they need leadership help. And now this may include a couple of things for you. I'll break it down and put it in a can for you. So you need to discuss creative approaches to gain access to key decision makers. That's one thing. Don't you agree? That you need to create creative approaches to gain access to the key decision makers, and then you need to plan sales call strategies, and then you need to really plan them around critical issues. And you really need to bring in one more person in this whole mix. And you really need to invest in the subject matter experts. So there would be some gurus who know something. How can you really make them important? They may not always be the senior most people, but they may be the best person who's selling a lot for you, or really is doing something good in that outlet that you have. So you take SME support in the sales process, and that support has to be to demonstrate the capabilities, Deepa, really. So this is the second takeaway, but I think maybe we can show the third takeaway to you before that. Maybe I'll take a look at it if you have any question to ask or anything else to tell me, Deepa.
Yeah, so please, before we move forward, let's have a quick poll regarding learning collaboration within the sales team. I would request all of the participants to give your poll views. I'm just launching the poll right now. So here's the question: how many people you are with the technology? How you use the learning collaboration with the sales team? So I would give you around 30 seconds, and please feel free to poll
okay, so your
opinions. Yes,
that's a good question, really. So you're asking how happy we are with the technology that we are using for learning collaboration now. Learning collaboration technologies for the sales team. Yeah, okay, let's have a look. Let's see how our audience today feel about availability of learning collaboration. Now, let me also answer it, what I think. Yeah, so I think, yeah, that's interesting. So,
yes. So I guess everyone has answered. So let me share with you the poll results. There are around 23% who have clicked on very satisfied, and 45% who have shared somewhat satisfied, and 32% who has are in the zone not at all satisfied. So please, Sameer, highlight some of your details here.
If I had to sort of bring a picture in the mind for all the audience here, it looks like all of us or most of us are saying that there are just few, about 20%, you said, like 20-23% who are actually very satisfied. Now, we are saying that at a time when there is a lot of technology available, isn't it? And most of us are still not having learning collaboration for sales teams. Not a technology there. Maybe there's a process, you do it some way. You probably think that the training does it for you, and you think that is the same, but there's no clear availability of that. So I'll tell you one thing, Deepa, and that's very important here. I think probably the most important thing in today's webinar, I'll say, learning collaboration is not same as the generic collaboration. It is more purposeful and requires availability of learning levels in terms of capability terms, really, for each person. So it really happens in 3 steps. I call it DMR. If you allow me, I'll explain that. What is DMR? Okay, so I take your nod as a yes. So definitely is for definition. So the system that you should have across the organization, or the technology system you should have, through that you should define the ideal persona of the salesperson. You define at a micro level. You define in terms of the product knowledge this person has, the process knowledge this person has, and all the other behaviors it has. So electronically, you're sort of creating a virtual super salesperson for you. I mean, the right ideal kind, which is probably very difficult to achieve, but there's a reason why you're defining it. So that's a D thing. The reason is the next stage is really to measure. Now measure, what do you measure really? So you accurately measure each person's capability, and then you store it in the systems, and you really need to have a system which can absorb that level of detail. And there are certain techniques and there are very good systems available. And when you do that definition and measurement, the third step is a natural go. The DMR, the R part of it is recommendation engine. Now, recommendation engines are finally, AI-based recommendation engine, which can sort of fit in pieces and say, hey, your capability, I can tell you very narrowly, and I can tell you that, you need to spend time on these interventions, like, specific.
Sorry, Samir is back.
Yeah. So sorry, you see, we talk about technology and technology doesn't work many times. So
Yes,
sorry
I
for
can
that.
see that.
No, okay. So excuse me for that. I was just trying to finish the last part. Maybe you heard me till measurement. I was saying that there are AI engines which can sort of recommend to each person what it is looking like what is the gap really, and not only saying that but also giving interventions, and which are the key part. I'll explain it, maybe even throw an example at you. So those would be role plays, those would be learning material, and those would be challenges. Now in such a system, what the time I spend, Deepa, on learning would be very different from what you do, even if we are in the same role and at the same level, Deepa. So you see, it's, yeah.
Yeah. So do you mean it is a customized tailored suit for each person?
Yeah, well, you like your sartorial analogies. I think, that is pretty accurate. So it is not a suit that you can pick up from the shelf like a supermarket, but you get stitched with a lot more care just for yourself. You know what? That's what it is. It fits you. The recommendation fit you. They really make just you a better person, put you under the right kind of anxiety. If you remember that Yerkes-Dodson model I showed you. And same way, the intervention for each person has to be specific. It should not be the generic for role. Now, all of the training professionals who are there from large organizations, don't you guys agree that the course plans are made and they're applied or assigned to a role? Anybody who joins a role has to really go through A, B, C, D. Now that's like putting everybody through the same mill, which is okay, which works. But how about if you could really, on top of that prescription, also add nuances, small things, which sort of covers Samir's weakness, for example, and makes him do this role play, and then sort of quickly does it well, So everybody gets that edge, Deepak. And yes.
Thanks, Samir, for sharing the first two takeaways, but you promised three takeaways. What is the third one? We would like to know.
Okay. I almost forgot that. Sachin will help me again. He's a lifesaver for me, a great professional in my team, really. So Sachin, you've got this third takeaway posted in front of me. What would I do without you, Sachin? So the third takeaway: focus on coaching to improve performance. And you know what? We are coming to a real fun part here. Let me promise you, the next half you will really enjoy. Okay, so let me first surprise you. It may surprise you when I say that consultative selling of a sophisticated solution requires expertise that is never fully developed in a training program. You see that? Never. In training program, no, it can't be developed that way. It requires skill development from practice in real situations. So like real flying hours you need to give to people. Now that can only come from coaching, and not any coaching, but gamified coaching. What is that? So that is when leaders focus on building sales talent, they're investing in more competitive advantage for the business, Deepa. But how are they doing it will require very sophisticated tools. So these are my process takeaways really. But, let's maybe delve into the technologies, Deepa, now, if you allow me, but I'll let you address this.
So I guess let's have one last poll. Which the question here is, sales, do salesperson receive gamified coaching in your organization? I would request everyone to answer the poll. Here is
gamified coaching.
Yes. Okay. Do salesperson receive gamified coaching in your organization? Yes, sometimes, never. Those are the three options.
You're really making us work today, Deepa. asking those questions. Huh? So this is about gamified coaching, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Sounds interesting. I like my game of golf a lot, really. But you know what? What is gamified coaching has to be as sweet, isn't it? I mean, let's see what audience. Okay.
So I guess okay, I have the results now. Let me share with you. So 7% has said yes, 47% has said sometimes, and 47% has said never. So your take on this, Samir?
Okay, I think I'll say one thing is clear: our audience is very truthful, because many times we may feel that there are systems, but looks like here we have got a set of people who are really looking at a possibility that there may not be systems to do it. Thinking may be there, all the sales leader will understand that this is needed, but what is there is not probably there. So gamified coaching, isn't that the question? So let me break it down for you. Gamified coaching is a mix of role play and review by coach. So coaching is different. Coaching is probably more a one-way street and a little bit of interaction in the end. So you're a sales coach, so you sort of work with you. You take me to a sales call. Maybe you sit silently and you do something. But the gamified coaching is little electronic in nature, and you sort of let people participate from distances. You don't need to be with them in the same room, especially in COVID situation. If you say, I'll say you can still run gamified coaching, but not coaching that much. You cannot take a person on a sales call. I mean, in some situations, yes, but otherwise, no. But let me add a little more context to it so that, I can put it in some clearer terms. See, achieving growth is enormously challenging in today's complex and very, very fast changing business environment, you can see. But growth opportunities do exist for companies who have got skills and the will to find them. Now, you see, one example is the rise of big data and the explosion of sales over digital platforms and the professionalization of sales management, which is both art and science, if you would. Now, that is really taking a fundamental shift in the way we look at this. Let me quote you a very, 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 very capable gentleman whom all of us recognize. I'm talking about Mark, Benioff, who's the CEO of the Salesforce.com. And in one of the interactions, what he says is that this is not a time to ignore sales. It is a time to reassess and reinvent it. So, reinvent is the part I want to highlight here. And I want to tell you that as the technology evolves and makes the world more closer, we are sitting on a call and we are sort of all connected here, and more global and more interconnected, I have only become more convinced that the importance of the sale and the need for companies to implement right strategies and right services, to get better selling has improved. They really have to bring in the technology mix here. And this can be brought together by sales gamification for sure. And I can also ask Sachin here to help me. And I'll ask him to put up the example of sales missions. Can I do that, Deepa?
Yeah, sure, definitely.
So I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So I'm just giving you a snapshot of various things or activities that you want your teams to do. However, you want to keep it fun and simple, and you have to understand that you're not always together with them on a real sales call and things. So you have to sort of put them down a little bit. And I promise you, I'll show you how you have some tools baking it in. But let me understand what you see on the screen first. You see a mission here. I mean, sales mission can be divided into broadly 2-3 components. And this is one representative sample only. So you can have some scenario pitching missions. So, you always have customer scenarios. So you can have some role plays around that. You can have, as it is called in that organization, which I'm talking about, a wonderful global Fortune 500 organization. And they have what is called competition dilution missions. Now, what you call, competition dilution could also mean like, how can you face here is another product which is probably better than yours, and how do you convince your customers that yours is the best? or something like that? How can you sort of put it in the context where customers really see you as a consultant, not a hard seller? So those are competition dilution missions. Then there are feature recall missions. They're about your product and service. Do you really remember at the right time the right feature and their detailing that will hit the nail and will close the call really? So those are the small missions designed around that. And then, most important perhaps, but mostly ignored, is the customer profiling missions, Deepa. And customer profiling missions are things where you really go into the persona of each target audience. And that's where I need to say that many of our sales leaders need to work. So this is what I wanted to explain to you. And before we go deeper into that, I'll that I show you the next slide also, Sachin, with your help. If I can move to the next slide. Now here is how it will function. This is the working part of it. So you give a situation to the team acts out. It's a role play, Deepa. So you wanna make your hands dirty. You act out. You maybe record it. There are tools to do that. And then you send it back all to me, who could be a guru, who could be a coach, who could be anybody, but he could be sitting in any part of the world. And they evaluate it. And the evaluation technologies are also going to be important here, because if you don't want to burden your best guys as evaluators, because you're gonna need subject matter expertise here. Then finalized part is really beautiful. That's where it all comes together. But that is done by artificial intelligence, or some kind of a built-in capability in the tool. So you do your first 2-3 parts correctly. You give a situation to your team, you let your team act out, and you evaluate. And you really stop worrying beyond that. So Deepa, and the system is fed with the evaluation, things come out nicely. So that is how it is done, Deepa.
Yeah, so I sort of get the theory, but can we see something live here? If you could showcase, the live scenarios.
So you want me to show the systems, like the tools where they have been?
Yes, yeah? Definitely. Okay. I mean, of course, the audience here would definitely like to see more of a demo.
So I think I have the thing for you. I mean, I hope we have it. Sachin, yeah. Will you like to put up the slide? Now I'll tell you what it is, what you're really looking at. This is a snapshot from an actual system, which I came across during one of my very interesting consulting assignments. And they should give you a picture of how all of it comes together. But you will have to work with me, because I cannot show you many slides or many screenshots of the actual system. But I can explain what are you looking at, here really. So what you're looking at is your product lines. There's a lot of panel on the left-hand side. Don't start reading it. There's a lot of engine parts to it. But look at this screen. What you're looking at is your main product lines. And you are probably a person higher up in the organization. So that's why you're seeing all of those product lines. And you're gonna click that product line which is important to you, and you're gonna see whether the capabilities are defined there. And that's where you will get to see the digital skills. So I'll move to the next slide here, and by clicking on one of those digital skills. Now, what are you doing here? You've got your actual competency bundles here. If I went third screen, then you would see deeper down where I'll not take you, because I'm showing you right now how it is put together. So just trust me that this is a third level, and you can see within that, if I sort of honed on product knowledge or the sales technique, I would see all those competencies really to the gory detail. That is the digital skill mapping. If you see the top right-hand corner of the screen, that's where the third step is written, which is digital skill mapping. But you see, this is only one way window, isn't it? I'm showing you, if you were the higher up or the person who's really planning it, then how does it look like? I haven't done you any service unless I tell you how does it look like to your sales team. The person who's really on the job and hand-to-hand combat with the in the workforce really. So he's in a day-to-day situation. So let me take you to the next slide. And Sachin, you're my lifesaver here. So this is a good one. Now this one, I don't want you to read it because there's pretty small fonts here, Sachin. But then don't do anything with the screen. Let's live with it. I'll tell you what it is. Now, right now, you're not at high up. You're someone who's a who's a person on the field, you're a salesperson. I'll only walk you through the icons. So I just shift your attention to the very right-hand side corner of the screen, please, for me. What kind of icons do you see? Do you see a player button somewhere, like the first one and the last one?
Yes, I
You
can.
see. So when you see those player buttons, those are good old stuff. You know, these are maybe your classroom trainings, or maybe they are your some e-learning material. The things which are prescriptive in nature. They are no fun to me, really. I mean, they're necessary, but they're coming from maybe your learning management system. They are just that. I like you to see just below that first icon. What do you see? Those two nicely lit up icons. What are they to you? They are actually joysticks, and they are the mission slides for you. Now, I cannot show you everything from the customer side because they are a Fortune 500 organization. They don't want to give me everything out. They have allowed me to show you this, but I'll tell you what it is. When you click that mission, you get into those few items there where you can start doing some of the activity yourself, and you start recording them and you putting them on a box, and that automatically reaches the coaches. It's all super high powered. It's very easy to do, and I've got some very good I can recommend to you all, whoever is interested and whoever wants to connect through you to me. I'll pass them on more details about it. But this part is about how they practice with themselves. The third thing that I would like to show you, for that, I'm going to start sharing something, which is on my screen only and not on your screen, really, Sachin. So you have been a great sport, but allow me to switch the screen towards myself. And what I'm going to do is, I'll need some technical help from you, and I'll probably click the share button over here. I'll do that. And I'm going to click on desktop, and boom, looks like you can see my screen now.
Yes,
you see that?
We can see your screen.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Guys. Okay, now work with me here, because I'll need that help. I'm going to scroll through 2-3 things on my screen. There are 3 tabs, as you can see. This is the box which is presenting to me the coaching work which is going on. This part is where I'm showing you, if I'm a coach, what do I see? It's looking super simple to you, isn't it? But there are certain parts to it. You've got this 9 dots on the left hand side. If I clicked it, I'll see all that has been submitted by my people who are under me in coaching in the specific area. If I were the product coach or sales competency related coach, or if I were a specialist in the features, I'll see something like this. Now, what do you see in the most part of the screen on the left hand side? You see a video, isn't it? I mean, so right now we are working with that. So someone has recorded it. Someone who was given that mission has recorded it. Now that's the video that I'll play for you. But before I do that, I want your attention on the right hand side. You see a lot of comments and stuff. Now that's how you interact with the teams. So this is all so interactive that, what will happen is, let me just run this video for you a little minute. Let's see what is there.
हेलो दोस्तों, जैसे कि आपको पता होगा कि मेरा नाम है और मैंने आपकी
So now if you see that I'll sort of bring down the volume a little bit for you, and I'll pause it also. So somebody has recorded how they are making their pitch, and there are comments which are here. So let's look at this comment here. It says, emphasize more on the background of the customer and his financial situation. It is more important to understand 2 key stresses before offering a solution. So here is the comment that I made. How did I make it? I reached that part. So I'll imagine I read this part in the video. It is here, and I'm listening to this part. I'll just go up and I'll go to this comment box. And just to show you right now, I'll say hey, so that you can understand that I'm making a new comment here. I may put a smiley to make it more human or something. So my comment is recorded here. The interesting thing is, I'll pause this again. If I clicked on, do you know what will happen if I click on this timer over here when the comment was made? I click it. It takes you to specific point where that comment belongs. So this is where I'm listening to this person and saying, hey, you're moving too fast. You need to emphasize more on the background of the customer. So this way, what will happen is that as a coach, I can sort of paint the timeline of this video that a person has thrown at me. Now, this is one easy way of doing it. There are many ways of looking at the coaching material sent to you. It's not always needing to be that high tech, but if it were, then it will close the loop for you. You click on this snazzy feedback option, and you can see all the comments all at once. You can start clicking here, like, if I want to edit it, you can do it, or I can resolve it too. I can post more comments here, and I can even share it with my team. If I click share over here, it will create a link for me, and it can allow people to log in without a password, or I can set a password there. So these are the simple collaboration methods where you can sort of bring a little bit of dynamism. I like to keep it quick for you and short for you, and I think we are reaching the very last minute here. So in a nutshell, I'll say the parts that I showed you from the technology, there I showed you on one hand, how you can behave when you are a senior person, and then what would you make your sales team do so that you can be close to them and make them do the role plays, and also you would be getting some help from your AI engines where what to make them work on, not making everybody spend the time on everything, but only those areas. Imagine I'm good in pitching my features, then don't make me do that. That's the kind of approach you have. So there are many good examples here. I've just taken one example. This is from a finance company, a microfinance company, which had about 2,000 people on the ground, and skilling them was a terrific, difficult task. It used to make people travel, and today you can't even travel. So how do you coach people just using the technology? So this is the example. I'll probably stop sharing here and handing it over to you again, so that you can tell me how did you like it. And I mean, no problem if you did not, but yeah, this is very, very helpful, and it's really working on the ground, Deepa.
Thanks, Samir, for showcasing this lovely tool and the insights that you have shared, and of course the new learnings that we all learned. That actually brings us to the end of the sessions. We have some time for questions. I would request everyone to type your questions in the chat box so that we can address some. So we had one question earlier from Amar. He wanted to know a learning collaboration question. So this question is about tools available or technology methods. So the question is...
okay, so it's about what kind of tools are available.
Tools, yes, or the technology methods.
Or the technology methods.
Or the methods.
So I think it's a wonderful question, because when you say tool, you mean that there is something enterprise level big and available to implement. So one of the tool I understand is called learning collaboration tool. It's called Atom Learning Collaboration, which is what I was giving you an example of. But then there are about 3 other good tools which do the similar things, and more than that, the techniques are a better part, because you can create your own tools, or if you knew what parts you need. So one part you definitely need in this case is the ability to not only map the competency of people by recording them on Excel, but really linking the competency to the actual projects. So really, if you were doing some kind of a project, you definitely get a rub off of certain technologies. So if you can have the competency mapping tools, that can be a little less expensive for you, and you can have a competency mapping tool. And then what you can do is that the other part of gamified coaching, you just have to really think through and see what are the training parts where you can do role play, and you just have to make your teams ready to sort of work with you and give them simple recording tools sometimes. And I was looking at a tool called Articulate Peak, which is pretty inexpensive. A lot of my customers use it. I talk about this name because I think I can safely bet my reputation behind it and not be hurt, because there are 90,000 customers using it in the globe. It's probably inexpensive, but there are other tools also through which you can do the same thing. These kind of tools, they allow you to record what you're doing. either on a screen or just a way using a simple handset or a mobile phone, and not only recording it. I mean, recording everybody can do, but you know, it has a system behind the recording also. So it saves the recording at a place where you can share it. And you saw me working on the part where the person who's coaching you hasn't got to note down everything on a piece of paper. You know, I mean, that's also okay if you have to finally to save cost, but you know, you can paint your comments on the timeline itself. I haven't seen any other tool better than Review, which is called Articulate Review. But yeah, I mean, there are possibly some other tools. And if you have a question follow up, I can possibly collect a list and share it with the customer, and you can, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
with the audience, you can pass it on to them.
Yes, thanks for that insight. I mean, I can surely relate it because I write a lot of notes on my book, which I never which I generally lose at the last moment. Maybe that is the thing. So we have another question that has come up from one of the participants. They would like to know how important is the collaborative learning in the sales team.
You know, collaboration here is probably most important, because you see, the sales team, more like any other function in the organization, be it finance team or marketing team, or you can have operations team even. Sales team is more like army, isn't it? I mean, you really have to follow the paradigm of army there. You say, what do you say in army or defense services? You know, you say, the more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. So this collaboration that we are talking about, or the gamified collaboration we're talking about, these kind of how important it is. It's very important, because you see, if you can sort of learn those skills just by sweating in peace, like, you know, role playing, then you're not going to lose customers really. And go back to my original thought when I said, how can I summarize everything here? If you call the customer and they don't hang up on you and actually thank you and write you a $5 check, then that's the value of your call. You want to bring that in. So that's why, you know, it's very important. And it's also possible. So let's do it. It's simple. I like that question. I mean, wonderful one.
Thanks, Samir. So we have another question, which, we have talked about gamified coaching. So people here would like to know how is gamified coaching helpful?
Okay. So see, gamified coaching is helpful. I can say in many ways, but I'm saying the most difficult part where it needs help is that, you see, don't you think that all the organizations are loading more and more coaching, selling techniques and sales experiences on people, and you know, whom are you burdening really with all that action? You are burdening the poor salesperson who has to go through all of it. Now in the gamified, there's this part of fun element. What if you enjoyed doing that mission? What if it was fun for you to look up yourself in the camera and talk to a virtual customer, and without worrying that this customer will run away and you will be called out that, you know, you lost a deal? You can practice, isn't it? I mean, that's why it is fun. It's more like, you know, we're giving you a new hobby. You are becoming a good actor. We're listening to you. We're your audience as a coach, you know, so it's fun. So that's why it's very helpful, and that's why you're really not giving more tools in the hand of, let's say, a sales trainer, but the actual practitioner. As a salesperson, every salesperson wants to do more sales, because that's how they get more commissions and stuff. But they really find it hard, just like a soldier. So that's what it is. I think that's where it helps the actual learner, and that's why it is more valuable than conventional selling techniques. Let me ask you this, Deepa. Whenever you get a sales invitation, like a training invitation, and I think you are also in sales yourself, isn't it an interruption to, or you say, yeah, I want to attend this training program, except if it is a nice offsite in Goa or Greece, you know, you would normally resent it, because, you know, it's normally that is how the training has become. So that's why a better touch to it is if you could do, you know, gamified coaching and get better results. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you on this. We have another set of questions, which is very interesting one, and I am sure you would like to answer this. This is about how we can ensure post-lockdown sales team efficiency and productivity comes back to its natural state faster.
Okay, that's probably the most contextual question, and I can see on the chat Mr. Kulwant Singh is asking that. So thanks for asking this. Before I answer this, just to be sure, I've got 15 minutes more for sure. I can extend my time, but beyond that, I've got a hard stop. So, I wanted you to know, Deepa, so that you could plan it accordingly. So Mr. Singh, your question is that how we can ensure post-lockdown sales team efficiency and productivity comes back to its natural state faster. So, sir, I'll say this, so this is a temporary phase, or maybe it is a long temporary phase, and people are all not practicing their techniques, and they are sort of away. So you're thinking how you can bring back the efficiency. It's the same thing for the soldier also, don't you think? The war is not always on. So what does the soldier do when the war is not on? They do a lot of practice, or the simulated practice. What you can do to your sales team is, this is probably the best time to do gamified coaching for them, because they have got all the time in the world. They're probably sitting at home. So if you give them some missions, they can easily sort of come up to speed on how to record those missions. So you give them feature recall missions, list down what are the important features and how your best gurus in the sales team present it to your customer. And make it small, like 5-minute mission, and ask your sales team to respond to that. And let them submit their recording, maybe just using an Apple phone itself, really. I mean, just the recorder is enough. And have someone have a look at them and respond to that one at a time. It will become a great game, really. And you can actually figure out, it's also a very good time. Peace times are very good also. This is the time when you can actually think, when you get back on your feet after lockdown, what things you were not doing well so far. So create missions around that. Is it that your product knowledge was actually okay, but you were really having a lot of competition? So you can create missions around how you are better than competition. Scan your competition right now. This is a very good amount of time. So I'm saying a lot of good companies right now are taking, I'm keeping a lot busy these days, so what does that mean is that a lot of my customers who are mostly Fortune 500 customers, they are taking this time for training more. They know that there would be a time when sales team will be back in force, and right now they have nothing else, so why not coach them? Why not make them do those things which they will actually end up doing in front of the customer? So make them role play. So that is what I'll suggest. And I'm telling you, you will thank me for this. If you do it right now, you will probably see a very efficient sales force, and you will see very happy sales force too, because my emphasis is mostly on that happy element. People should enjoy what they're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. I would definitely take a couple of questions more if you have time, not more questions. So let me ask you, there is one question that has come up. What should be the ideal duration of gamified coaching? If you could address this.
This is probably the important part in the detailing stuff. Don't get carried away and make it very cumbersome. That's what I'll say. It should be small as possible. You hear this other term, very popular term in most of the Western media, a lot of Indian media also. Have you heard this term, micro-learning? Micro-learning is like bullet-size pieces, not more than 2-3 minutes, and you need to absorb them in that way. So in the gamified coaching also, you have to craft the missions which are micro missions. I'm not asking you to do something continuously for more than 17 minutes. And why 17 minutes? You will ask me. Again, I'll go back to psychology, because sales is a lot of psychology. Attention span for the best of us is not more than 17 minutes. You will definitely get pinged to do something else. So you have to keep it short, that it settles within any local boundary. And by the way, anything less than 10 minutes, if I ask you to do, and if you are a good sport and a friend, you will possibly do it for me. And if I ask you to anything more than 30 minutes, you will say, Samir, block my calendar. So that's why keep it short. The size is probably 3 minutes is ideal, but then you really need to be very good at creating those 3 minute ones. So I'll say keep it within 15 minutes and then you will see what you want to do. So that's a good one.
Yeah, thanks, Samir. I guess everybody were able to relate with the your answers or insights that you have shared. One last question that I would like to take up before because we are already running out of time. I will take this last question for you. So how do you how to do sales in the current scenario where you can go to meet customer, as most of us are work from home? So how do you make sales effective in this time where you cannot meet people and you are working from home?
Oh, okay. So you're saying besides coaching and training, is there some sales you can do? That's your question,
Yes,
isn't it?
yes.
Now that's a tough one because it
Especially
really,
yes.
yeah, I mean, you're looking at a lockdown and you're saying that. I'll tell you what applies to like 90% of us. There are certain industries which are still open and I mean, surprisingly fully functional also. There are only those industries which are fully open, which are digital, totally digital in nature, and also are B2B digital, not B2C. So how do you do sales in this time? Okay, so now I'll tell you what part of sale you can do. You cannot possibly do the delivery and fulfillment that much if your business is that you need to trade bulk. This is the time when you look at relationships. Now, anybody whom you have contacted in the past and hasn't given you sales is the right candidate to sort of check on this time. So this is the right time for building your prospecting. This is the best time. And I see that people are really chatty this time. People are okay and open. If you're knocking on them and saying something which is on the lines of saying that, you know what, we crossed our paths, a few months back. How are you doing? How's everything at your end? So I'm saying you can do your prospect building this time. You know what? Don't worry. There's never a bad upper limit to how much prospects you have in your bucket, and you just don't get enough of them when your daily work is on. You can do that. So I'm talking to B2B businesses right now. When I say you do your prospecting this way, if you're B2C, I think you've got a challenge here. I mean, I really don't know what you can do in terms of really, sort of doing an actual sales. You better conserve your cash. And you know what, look at how you're going to look at some other sides of sales, which are the logistics side of sale. How can you make it more efficient? So, if you were traveling a lot, training your people, then cut down that. Right now, put the systems in place so that you can recover the cost of your people moving from, the T&L cost that you have, travel and lodging costs for your sales team. You can probably work on the costing side. You can't do much if you're a B2C sales right now. If you're B2B, I tell you honestly, you have a lot of work right now. You are not locked down. Trust me, you can really make a lot of prospecting pipeline right now. And if you scan, and I cannot cover everything in this answer right now, but I have got a trend report on the investment inflows also. And the investment inflow is really happening on those technologies right now at the COVID lockdown, which are enabling the digital behaviors and digital interactions. Prospecting is all about that. So that's happening. That's a proof that right now some companies are heavily building their prospect pipeline. But then, hey, look at this. Nobody knows what's the end game of this situation. So I'm not going to venture too deep in it, but I'm saying, what you can do is more prospecting. If you are a B2B company, more relationship building, sort of clean up your CRM, go back like 6 months, 1 year, scrape out those guys who are in that list. Just make a phone call, say hello. That's going to give you more rewards and sort of thinking about when is the lockdown over. So don't worry, just build your sales pipeline.
Thanks,
Okay.
Hari. Yeah, thank you. So, although we are, running late, what we can do is we are not able to answer all the queries. What we will definitely make sure that we come back to you through email and respond all of the queries. And I hope that would be okay with everyone, since there are quite a number of questions and we are already running late. I would, answer those questions through email. And if you have any questions that comes in mind, you can also write to us at deepa at stratbeans.com. And of course, Samir, I would like to thank you for giving such a beautiful insight about the technology. And this was definitely a new learning for me and the team, and of course the participants as well. Now, let me also thank you for attending the session today. We have more sessions coming up in the future, and I will definitely be keeping you updated on those as well. But before going, before logging off the session, I would request you to have the feedback poll. And it would be great if you could quickly share the feedbacks with us through this poll. So please share your experience. How was your experience today? Very useful or less useful? And if not at all, please do share your honest feedback. That will definitely help us to understand more towards making the webinar effective.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice. So like you're going to have more webinars, and people can leave their emails to you if they be contacted. All right. So thank you very much. I guess, I think you were very, let's say, very encouraging host, Deepa, and I enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you so much.
And this topic is of interest to all of us, and therefore it was more fun talking on this topic. And then I guess the question that we got from a lot of audience, I remember Mr. Kulwant there who asked a question on, these things, and these are very topical times. So we all have to have our thinking hats on. So I'll be signing off now. And thanks for keeping it within the time. And I have to now rush, but thank you once again. And all the people involved with this. Sachin, you were a lifesaver. Thank you very much. Thank you, Vinod, everyone else. Thank you, Pradeep. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a great day.